And with me, I have Bob Burg, author of Endless Referrals, The Go-Giver. The Go-Giver Sells More, and a whole lot of more books that he's got. And I also have Hems Thakkar and Nish Char with me from Burg Finance in Perth. So I'm really excited to have Bob on the line. It's very, very exciting. How it came about was I was at the Perth NIFNEX 100 Influential Awards night, and I was one of the winners, and so was Nish. And Nish was one of the, Hems was one of the winners as well. And Burg Finance was the sponsor for the event. So Hems started speaking about the Go-Giver. And having read the book probably 6 years before, and having spoken to Bob on the phone before at the same time, I wanted to video it and send it to Bob, so which I did. And Bob responded very quickly, and we decided to set up this call so that everybody can benefit from it. So welcome, Bob. It's great to have you on the line. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jill, Hems, Nish. It's so great to see all of you.
Yes, Bob, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Bob.
Very good. So, Bob, I'd like to get my question in first before Hems and Nish jump in. I love your concept of posture. You know, when you, I think one thing that you said was your posture is directly proportional to your prospect list that you have as a salesperson. And your posture is always also directly proportional to the success you're feeling inside in terms of what's coming forward. What made you start writing about the Go-Giver and Endless Referrals? Was there a moment that you didn't know it and then you did, or have you always known these things?
Oh, no, I have had the opportunity and the pleasure to learn a lot from a lot of people. So now I often say that I have never had an original thought in my life, but I'm always open to learning. And you know, I was very, very fortunate to have and still have great parents. So I had a terrific upbringing with an example of people who are truly wonderful, wonderful people. And so that was a good start right there. As I got older, my first real job as an adult was in broadcasting. I started out in radio and television, but I wasn't very good at that, and I quickly, what I call, graduated into sales. The problem was I knew nothing about sales, and so I floundered for the first few months. Now, I picked up a book in a bookstore. Now, this is over 30 years ago, back when bookstores were most known for selling books. Here in the States, most bookstores now are coffee houses that have some books. And so, but it was different back then. There was a book called How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins, and I know he's been to Australia a lot, a very, very big speaker in Australia. And his book, plus a book that I got at the time from Zig Ziglar, who I know also is very well known in the land down under, these two books helped me really learn about sales, and they provided a system for me. I define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. In other words, the key is predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and do A consistently, and you'll eventually get the desired results of B. And so I now had a system which very quickly helped propel me. But another great thing about just being in sales is that you learn that selling is about understanding people and understanding yourself. So I began to get into all the personal development books. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Carnegie, and As a Man Thinketh by Allen, and just all the classic, Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and began to really learn about me and build me on the inside. And it really began for me a quest for learning. And so that really is how that started. Then when I worked my way up to sales manager of an organization and began teaching others what was working for me and for my organization, it sort of morphed into a speaking business. And my first book, Endless Referrals, it was really a book that I at first wrote to help position me as a speaker, but really what it was it allowed me to put down on paper, if you will, those things that I was fortunate to learn from others and then was able to systemize, make predictable.
Mm, mm. That's really, really good. I've just noted two things that I wrote down was predictability and positioning yourself as a speaker. There are quite a few people that are going to be listening to this that need to have that sort of system or need to have that predictability. I think with any success, there's a level of predictability that's important as well.
Well, that's what you do with your coaching. So you know something like that, and you use that firsthand. And so yeah, really that's. I think that continued learning is the key. It's for us to always know that there's more to learn, and of course we want to learn from people who are congruent with our values, and and it just helps us keep moving forward and expanding.
Yeah, that's the key thing, that congruent to the values, and that's probably a good time to bring Nish and Hems. And now Nish, I've known for a couple of years. He has 12 properties of his own. He also has development in Kenya. And Hems has got 6 properties of his own. I've got some properties in America. I think I'm up to 5 now as well. So we're all very much enjoy the investment side as well. But what I was most impressed with in terms of what Hems and Nish have been doing in their company, Money Finance, is before they'll do business with somebody, they will give them a copy of your Go Giver book to see if their values align with those of their suppliers. Nish, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're trying to build a nobility network here of go-givers, and would like to have 100 of those businesses, ranging from your traditional plumbers to sparkies to accountants, doctors, whoever it may be. It could be a chiropractor. That we can actually have a list of, should somebody ask, or do you know such and such in this line of work, and we go, here you go, and you know you've got absolute peace of mind because the person you referred them to is going to do the right thing even when they're not looking. So we've been doing this, and we're working through this list, and maybe Bob can give us some ideas on, like he said, you know, it doesn't have an original idea, and we don't want to try and reinvent the wheel here, but if you can maybe give us a couple of nuggets to fast track this, would be very, very appreciative of that.
Well, you know, I think the biggest thing, and this is one of the things that Sam, one of the mentors and the Go-Giver, talked to Joe, the protege, about, was having that army of personal walking ambassadors. And in a sense, that's really what you're talking about. You're setting up a group of people who will know each other, who will like each other, who will trust each other, and you'll really feel that when you make a referral or someone else in that group makes a referral, everyone knows that person's going to have, they're going to place the other person's interest first. You know, which really turns out to be the best way not only to live life, but to do business. There was a, I don't know if you've read the book Give and Take by Adam Grant, who is a professor, Wharton business professor here in the U.S., and he did the book Give and Take actually was a study. It was on what makes people successful. He cited rather an Australian study of financial advisors, stockbrokers, people who made their living by helping people create, manage, grow financially. And the study was on the most successful financial advisors. What was it? What was the determining factor that made these people so successful? And of course, financial acumen was very important. The ability to work hard, again, very important. They all did that. But those weren't the determining factors. The actual determining factor was the top of the top producing financial advisors placed the interest of their clients above themselves and above their companies. And as such, they built these know, like, and trust relationships. That other person knew that person was there to provide value to them. This is one reason why we say that money is an echo of value. Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning, which really just means that the value must come first. The focus must be on providing value to others, giving value to others. the focus is on the value comes first. The money is simply a very natural and direct result of the value you've provided. And that's really the key. And, of course, that's what very successful people like you understand that. And you've always done that. You did that well before reading the book. What you saw in the book just was congruent with the principles you were already conducting your business and living your life with. Yes.
So that's fantastic. So have you've probably got a similar network that you operate through? Do you want to share how you went about setting it up? Was there a pattern that you used, or did it happen by default?
Well, I'm not sure it ever really happens by default, but I would say that it happened very naturally. As regardless of whatever business I've been in, I always look for people I can refer to others when something is complementary that someone needs, or is something I can't handle myself. And I think when you reach out and you really look for people to do that, and you do it strategically. You look, you ask the questions, you determine what is right and what is going to work for everyone involved. And you do that, and you build those relationships, and when you're with the right kind of people, it starts to expand very, very naturally at that point. So, I don't think it has to be complicated, but it does have to be focused.
Wow. Okay. Now, you've got the characters in the book going from Ernesto right up to Deborah Davenport. Are any of these based on real characters at all?
Well, when John and I were writing it, and John David Mann, my co-author, was really the lead storyteller. He was the great writer. I'm much more of a how-to person. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3, system out, right? John is a great storyteller. So when we'd work on this together, the first thing we did is we took people who we either kind of knew, or it was a combination of people, and a couple of people we did have people in mind when we formed the characters. But others were, like Joe was sort of everyone. We've all been Joe or Josephine at one time or another, right? We had that potential, we had the good intent, we worked hard, but we just weren't doing the things right, and we needed that sort of shift in focus and maybe a mentor or someone to come along that helped. So we've all been Joe. Rachel was a totally made-up character. Others were sort of combinations of people who we knew in our lives. And many of the incidents in the book, even though it's a totally fictional story, a lot of the incidents actually happened in real life, but we put them into story form.
Wow. I think that's what makes it very relatable. When we read The Go-Giver, it's like, yes, I get that. That's happened to me. I get that as well. And so it's very relatable, and that was excellent. We found that formal channel to define who we are and what we're doing through the book, and that's why we adopted it as our cultural Magna Carta within the company, in how we operate, who we are, and defining who we are.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm sure a lot of people see the three of you as Pindars in their lives.
Yes.
I have a question, Bob. The concept of a knowing doing gap. There's some things that we know that we can be doing, and there's some things that we are actually doing. And all of us have had those gaps, and sometimes we teach what we most need to learn. Is there any point that you have looked at yourself and thought that knowing doing gap is a little bit wider there than I'd like? It may probably not something that happens to you now, but it might have been happening to you maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us on that regard?
Jill, there have been many times in my life where the knowing and doing gap was much wider than I wanted it to be. I would say that about 20 years ago, there was a major shift in my life that happened when I I built up a fairly successful business. Things had been going well, but things had also sort of stopped, and I wasn't growing. And I kind of took a personal accounting in my life and saw that there were areas that unless I changed in those certain areas, I probably wasn't going to be able to grow like I'd want to. And about that time, I read a book. I was actually given a book by really a hero of mine, Charlie Tremendous Jones, who in the U.S. was a very, very well-known speaker and author, and just a wonderful, wonderful man. And he sent me a book by Benjamin Franklin, one of the founders of the U.S. And Ben Franklin wrote this book, The Autobiography. It was a book he wrote in the 1700s, really to pass along wisdom to his son. But it took on a life of its own, and the book's a wonderful book, The Autobiography by Benjamin Franklin. So much wisdom. In one chapter, he wrote about when he was a young man, when Ben was a young man, and he had certain traits, characteristics that he felt really stifled his growth and that were stopping him from being as successful as he could be. Now, back then, they didn't have a whole lot of self-improvement courses, but of course, he was an inventor, so he invented his own self-improvement course. And what he did is he took 13 traits or characteristics that he felt he was lacking that needed to be turned into positives. And he put himself through a course where he would focus on this one trait very diligently for a week. And then he'd do a week on the next one and the next one. So 13 of them. Now, 13 times 4 are 52. There are 52 weeks in a year. So what that meant is when he focused on each of those, he could go through that course 4 times in a year. And it really improved his life and his effectiveness. So I did the same thing. Again, I don't have original ideas, but I'm really good at taking ideas and working them so that they work for me, and then being able to systemize them. And so I followed what Ben did. Now I put a few different traits because I needed to work on some different traits than Ben, although I also used many of his. It just helped me so much in some areas that I really, really needed to work on. And I've got to say that doing that helped me improve my life significantly. Because first I had to be aware that these negative traits were holding me back. They were not serving me. They were certainly not serving others. And once I understood that, once we know there's an issue, now we're in a position to do something about it. Then we use a system, the process of predictably achieving a goal, in order to do that. And I would say that is when the gap between knowing and doing started to really decrease. And of course, I still have my areas. I'm still always learning, growing, making mistakes, and grow. But I'd say that made a huge difference in my life. And it's a book I would really recommend everyone read.
Yeah. Well, there was one of the first books I actually read, and I recall that the 2 areas you struggled with was your health and fitness, and you used Bill Phillips and a personal trainer. Is that correct, from memory?
And what was the second one?
You struggled with health and fitness, and you used Bill Phillips, and you used a personal trainer 3 times a week to help you during that week of focusing on your health and well-being. And the other thing, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and the other thing was you couldn't keep your office tidy.
All right. Yeah, I still haven't gotten that one.
Yeah, so I can see you're doing a good job with that bit.
My 2 big areas that I really needed to work on, and those are the health and fitness still, and I still use a trainer. I have a trainer that comes in 6 days a week, and she's terrific. And if she wasn't training me, I'd probably be very heavy and but because I realize that's an area with me that I need that accountability. So I have a fitness coach, and she prepares the food for me, and she does the exercising right there. But my 2 big issues, I would say, that I really had to work on, one was having a lack of gratitude. I did not focus on the blessings. I did not focus on the good things. I focused on what was wrong. Once I made a focus on living in gratitude, boom, my life just improved immeasurably. And the more you focus on gratitude, the more you end up having to be grateful for. Thoughts are things, we know that, and we know that we attract what we put out. The other was I had a real bad habit of speaking negatively about people. And that was something, again, not just a terrible thing to do. It was not helpful to anyone. It was hurtful to myself as well as to others. And again, once I focused on that, wow, again, what a huge difference in my life. And while there are certainly the other areas, I'd say those two made the biggest difference for me. I stopped ever gossiping, stopped ever just saying bad things about people, and I started living in gratitude. And those two things, for me, made a huge difference.
Mm. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, actually, and it ties in quite nicely to that knowing doing gap. A couple of years ago, I was getting really annoyed because I kept on reading these things about gratitude. So, you know, Bob Proctor was talking about it, Mary Morrissey was talking about it, you were talking about it, Wayne Dyer was talking about it, Louise Hay was talking about it. All these books that I was reading were talking about gratitude, and I got to a point where I thought, you know, can't they have something new to say? They're all saying the same thing. And I thought, I actually agree with that. I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And that's when I sat and I thought, well, when last did I actually write a gratitude list? And I sat down and I wrote 30 things that I was happy and grateful for. And I felt the shift. I felt that vibrational shift. And that is exactly why that's why I published the Attitude of Gratitude Journal. I
see that is that in back, Attitude of Gratitude, that I see behind you on the right?
That's right, yeah.
Love it.
That's why I published the journal, so that everybody could get that experience of actually writing, instead of just reading about it, actually writing their own list.
Yeah, that's very important. I really think that gratitude is the trait that without that, nothing else, in a sense, really matters. Because if you're not grateful, it doesn't matter what you have. You're not grateful for it, so you don't know it. If you are grateful, everything else it pulls everything else up.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to Christiane Northrup talking about epigenetics, which is the scientific study of how our genes respond and how we have some inherited genes and how the environment actually dictates how the genes respond. And she was saying one of the secrets to living a healthy life is joy, happiness, gratitude, all the exuberant emotions. Mm. So that goes across. Goes across everything.
Absolutely.
Bob, if you had some advice for your younger self, maybe 15, 20 years ago, what advice would that have been? Looking back now.
Well, I go back to my younger self about 30, 35 years ago. Because I really needed to hear a few things that I fortunately eventually heard, but I'd have even gone back further if I could have. And the first one was, Burg, you don't have to know everything, because you don't know everything. And when I was younger, I was amazed by how much I knew, which I really didn't. And sometimes some people credit Mark Twain with this, but I've heard others credited with the saying, it's not what we know that gets us in trouble, it's what we think we know that just ain't so. And I think that was me in my early 20s. And I needed to be told to, maybe don't talk so much and listen a lot more. And fortunately, that was something that as I began to start studying and learning, I began to do a lot more. But I think I kind of wish I knew that earlier. And I think that's really the biggest thing. I think that's really the biggest bit of advice I would give my younger self. Start being in learning mode a lot earlier than I really was.
Mm.
That is great. That is excellent feedback. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what Hems and Nish have been doing is handing out the Go Giver to their prospective customers, their prospective partners, their prospective service providers, and it's made a huge impact on their business. Nesh, or Hems, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So to give you a bit of a background, we started Amani Finance as a single person. You know, when Nish was like a mentor to me, and he still is. From a single person to go to a company that has 15 staff and also opening branches nationally. It's all about having a nobility network, having a noble cause that drives you, and business for good or business for contribution. And that's very much in alignment with everything that the Go-Giver spells out. So we were doing it. We were doing it out of our natures or the growth paths that we've taken, but we didn't have a definition for it. And having that backbone, having that skeleton of who we are, and we are go-givers, and we want our teams to be go-givers, and actually spreading that. So it's given great momentum. It's given huge momentum, feedback, positivity, gratitude, all that's needed to drive this. And instead of it being a task or an uphill battle, it's natural. It's just a natural evolution that's happening across the country. And a lot of people in Australia may not have heard of the Go-Giver, but I'm sure it's going to be very soon, because recently it was on the NIFNEX Awards. It was also on national television. We had West TV interviewing us, and a lot of people who had to hear a few things that we had to say, whatever you say resonated within us, and that's exactly the first impression the Go-Giver gave. It just resonates with who we are naturally, all of us, you know. We've got that good in us, we've got that giver in us, you know.
Now that's so very, very gratifying to know. I'm just so honored to know that. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, and what you like is it's actually happening and happens. So it's not a wish, it's not a dream. We're actually present now across the country in 3 states, and so just this philosophy works. It's not fluffy stuff, it's not warm and fuzzy stuff. It actually can be used for business practically, which is great, you know, because we all want to do good, and then we wonder, but look, I've got to work hard, I've got to make a profit, I've got to use business for consumption rather than contribution. That's not true. That's an ancient way of doing things, and you know, a lot of people still have that attitude. But the awareness is coming and things are changing. And I think this video, like what you've been saying, is extremely powerful. So we're grateful that you've given us this knowledge.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all 3 of you, and you know, you're really, it's just an extension of yourselves, and I appreciate the value you're providing to so many people just by being you and setting an example. And you know, we one at a time just can all make a difference that way.
Indeed,
Yes.
and as long as we stay unique to ourselves and make sure that we use our skills and our behaviors and our personality to really allow that to shine through, I think that makes a big difference. When we are contributing to everybody. And it's about really entering into the creative plane rather than the competitive plane.
Yes.
Which is quite a...
Yeah, and you know, that was something Wallace D. Wattles spoke about back in his 1910 book, The Science of Getting Rich, which I really enjoyed you know, because again, it goes to focus. It's not that there aren't competitors out there, and that's fine. Competition's a fine thing. And we need to know who the competition is. We need to be aware, but not focus on them. We focus on the creative plane. When we're focused on creating, which is really doing what? It's finding ways to provide exceptional value to others. And when that's our focus, then the competitive part takes care of itself. It's when we focus on the competition, that's when we lose gratitude. That's when we start reacting to what they're doing rather than focusing on what we're doing. And you know, when we talk about providing value to others, what we realize is value is always in the eyes of the beholder. So it's not what we think is of value about our product or service, although that's important, but what's key is how the value we provide affects the life of the other person. You know, when you think of it, what a professional salesperson does is they connect the benefits of their product or service with the needs, wants, and desires of the customer. The Old English root of the word sell, sellan, literally meant to give. So when we're selling, we're giving. Now, someone might say, isn't that just semantics? And I would say, no, I don't think so, and here's why. Let's say you have a prospective customer in front of you, and you're in the selling process. What are you giving? I suggest you're giving time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and mostly you're giving value. So when you're selling, you're giving, and you're doing it creatively, looking to create value for another person rather than focusing on what the competition is doing. So I love what you said, Jill.
Right.
So when we match the benefits of our product with the needs of the customer, and we are actually giving of our time, giving of our expertise, and particularly giving of the expertise that is within our not our comfort zone, our expertise zone, then and it meets with what the customer wants, then it's a really good energy exchange, isn't it?
It is, and that's why asking questions, and that's why the salesperson who doesn't talk about their product or service but asks the prospect questions about what they want, what they need, what they do. When you think of it, we can easily define selling as simply determining what the other person wants, needs, or desires and helping them to get it. That's really selling. And, you know, we may have a product or service that is a commodity, that it's something that a lot of other people have, and that's fine. So how do we separate ourselves? How do we live in the creative plane and become that person who people desire to do business with? Well, we become that extra value. We build that know, like, and trust relationship. We also communicate our additional value probably hundreds of ways, but they tend to come down into 5 different what we call elements of value. And those are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And when we're able to communicate those 5, wow, it just, you know, takes us as more than just a commodity, but instead positions us as something special. And that's why a person who really is a go-giver type of salesperson, they sell on value rather than trying to sell on low price. When you try to make low price the proposition, there's nothing to that. It's just a when you try to sell on when you sell on price, you're a commodity. When you sell on value, you're a resource, a trusted resource. And you know, and that's really the key. So instead of trying to lower the price, instead communicate that value and make sure you have that exceptional value to be able to communicate. And the way that's done is always aligning it with the needs of the customer.
Yeah, that's very good. That's something that's important to hear on a regular basis, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Which, out of the 5 laws of stratospheric success, which is your favorite one, Bob?
Oh, that's an interesting one, because all 5 certainly have to work together. If you take even one of the 5 away, it implodes.
Yeah.
Probably the law of influence is my favorite. You know, the law of value, the first one, is certainly the foundational one, but the law of influence, which says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first, is probably my favorite. One of the reasons is it sounds very counterintuitive. Place other people's interests first, but think about it. And we mentioned this a little bit earlier, referred to it. The great leaders, the top influencers, the most profitable salespeople, That's simply how they run their lives and conduct their business. They're always looking for ways to focus on bringing value to others. Now, when we say this, though, I want to qualify. When we say place other people's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should be anybody's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Not at all. It's simply that, again, as Ernesto and Nicole and Sam each said to Joe, the golden rule of business, of sales, of networking, what have you, is, again, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you and others in order to build those relationships than by what we like to say, stepping outside of yourself, moving from an I focus or a me focus to an other focus. Always looking for ways to, as Sam said to Joe, make your win about the other person's win. And the person who does that, wow, they find their business a lot more fun, a lot less stressful, and a lot more financially profitable.
When we help other people get their goals, then we achieve ours.
And Zig Ziglar said that so wonderfully when he said, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And I love that focus from Zig. He was such a magnificent teacher, and he lived his life like that. And he was just a wonderful human being. And so what a great lesson that was from Zig.
Yeah. Now, Bob, you mentioned about not being used as the doormat. Is there anything in place that you have that actually defines where it's heading that way, and then you've got to back off? And how do you actually back off? For a lack of a better word, I'm using back off.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think that if you feel as though what you're doing is, if you feel you're being taken advantage of, or another person not only does not have your best interest at heart, because not everybody does, we live in the real world, or not everybody is going to, then you ask yourself questions. Can I do business with this person in a way that I can both respect myself and stay congruent with my values and help this person, but without me being taken advantage of? And if you can, well, that's fine, and you hopefully teach that person by example as you go along and so forth. But if you feel as though this is a person who is going to take advantage of you, or as a person who doesn't show that well, then you make the decision not to do business with that person, or not to have this person in your life. And it doesn't mean you speak disrespectfully to them, or that you tell, no, it just means you remove yourself from from that situation. But being a go-giver should never, ever be misconstrued with allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, or because that should not be congruent with your own personal values.
There's a part in the Go-Giver where Pindar tells Joe the same thing, that I've forgotten what the words are, but he doesn't have any control over Pindar and his time.
Oh, right, he can't waste his day. He says, yeah, you don't have the power to waste my time. You're right. Only I can do that, and that's not something I'm going to do. But, exactly.
Yeah, that was very good. Bob, how can we help you make more go-givers in the world?
I would say just doing what you're doing. Just being a great example. Living your lives as you are, conducting your business as you are. I mean, that really is what it's about. And I think as you do that, and people respond to that, and they see that it's a great way of doing business, all of you are very, very successful people, and people generally want to know, why are you so successful, and what's that person doing, and even if they don't ask, they're still observing. And they're seeing the way you do things. And so I think that's really the best way that we create, a world of go-givers. We have a membership group you may have seen online. It's a Go-Givers Success Alliance. And we have people from all different countries that, aside from us having calls every month, people exchange information with each other. People ask questions of one another. People refer to business to each other. And again, we do this we're creating this whole group of ambassadors, if you will, or just group of go-givers, and that's exactly what you all are doing through your businesses.
Mm-hmm. Bob, is there somewhere that people can go and have a look at that membership site, the membership service that you have, so that if they wanted to know more and if they wanted to work closer with you, they could do that?
Sure. If people go to burg.com, burg.com, there's pretty much everything there. They can subscribe to my Influence and Success Insights. There's the blog. They can connect with me on social media, and you'll see there's a place where they can get more information about the Go-Givers Success Alliance.
Thank you for that. You're wonderful on social media. You respond very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. When I'm in town, I'm able to. It's funny, when I'm on the road speaking, I don't as much because I don't know. I shouldn't use as an excuse that I'm 57 years old and too old, because other people my age do that. But I find to be on that little phone trying to do it doesn't work for me. So I'm only able to get back when I'm in the hotel and I have my actual computer, the laptop set up. So it takes a little while for me to respond when I'm on the road speaking. But typically when I'm in town, I'm at the computer a lot, and so I'm able to, every couple of hours, take breaks and check social media and email, and I try to be very responsive. I believe that's important. It's congruent with my values, and so I make that a point to do that.
Yeah, that's very good, and you clearly walk your talk, because your team members are also very available and very willing. I had a conversation with one of them today at midday my time, which was midnight her Sunday night, and so there's a lot of commitment there.
We have a fantastic team of people, and my business partner, Kathy Tajanel, just amazing, brilliant and wonderful and kind, and boy, I'll tell you what, she makes the business work, because she makes it so that I can do the things that are my strengths, and not have to worry about the actual day-to-day running of the business. She does that, and it's a blessing to have her as a business partner.
Yeah, that is super. Well, Bob, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And so people can go to Bob to get all your information. There's some wonderful resources there and some good downloads. And there's even the Go-Giver 5 Stratospheric Laws of Success.
Absolutely.
So for those that haven't heard it before, they can go and get it there. Nesh and Hems, have you got anything to add?
We just want to really thank Bob for everything and his precious time that he's given us.
I know how much I appreciate all of you, and just how much fun it's been to be on this conversation with you. I thank you so very much for everything you are and for everything you're doing. I just want you to know how grateful I am for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much. Thank you.